What is going on, Polestar fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So, out of all the earnings so far in 2023, this is probably the most exciting one, to be fully honest. So, numbers are up almost about 6% after hours, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. So, I think a lot more is coming down the pipeline. But it's kind of going through some of this. It is a lot to go through, but generally, yeah, pretty good. So about 2.5 billion in rev for 2022. Of course, we already do know that they went over and exceeded their target 2022. And as I've said in videos, like this is one of the biggest points why I really like Polestar is it's hitting that demand, and the demand's very much there. We already know all the stats, everything is just very much validating that just EVs are there and the demand is there. So if you can actually supply that, then hell, you're going to make a lot of good money. So Polestar is reconfirming as well the 80,000 for 2023. And it looks like Polestar 3 and 4 are going to make kind of appearances as well. Revenue, like I said, 2.5 billion. Cost of sales is reducing at a little bit faster rate. So again, a positive sign there. Yeah, a lot of the finite numbers, I think what people are going to be caring about more in this particular earnings is what they're talking about risks and potential if there is any disruptions, because in here, and also CNBC did talk on it as well, they refer to other EVs. And like I mentioned, Polestar is pretty much the only good company, if you want to say it that way, that actually hit their targets, whereas a lot of other companies are kind of citing supply chain issues or some other issues. So I think a lot of people will be listening exactly very, very closely to what is said. So it does start in roughly about 8 minutes. Also, one thing that they are starting this time around is going to be this. So they posed questions. Retail was able to pose questions, majority of which is just around marketing. So that's what the majority of the questions are. So first question is being said that Polestar is not known brand in the US. Like, what's efforts to improve this? So very much marketing, very much, this one's a newer one. Can you share any details on Polestar's long-term plans for expanding its product line? So of course, I think that's a fairly good one. They've touched on that quite a lot, so we'll see what they say. Any plans on investing in marketing? So I think it's marketing. That's what they want to know, and that's what people want to care about. But I think this is a very interesting concept that other companies have really done in the past. But and just to put it in perspective as well, so this was the last earnings that Polestar did have, and they had 988.26 million in cash equivalent short-term investments, 2.19 million in long-term. And as far as cash, what they have right now, I think it was just short of 1 billion. If I found that correctly. But in case you're just joining, what's going to happen, I'm just going to stay quiet during the actual conference call. Afterwards, I'll chime back in. We'll go through it all together, and then yeah. So yeah, right here. So just shy of about 1 billion. So 973 million is what they ended 2022 at. So it's pretty good. Not much of a change per se. After hours, like or pre-market, up 3.96%. So it is a little bit more of a volatile time right now, but pre-market usually is. Thanks for all coming together. It is a little bit early for myself. I don't know where you guys live, but... And also on a side note, if you guys are interested, you guys can always just skip the chapter. So it's all going to be chaptered at the very bottom in case you guys don't want to listen to me rant. But let's join. I'll get to listen to the fun hold music. Yep, same old hold music. So like I said, once it comes back on, then this is where I'll mute myself. How's everyone doing today? Tobias, I completely agree. I don't know why, like, a lot of people just are not fans of Polestar, whereas I let the numbers speak for investing, and a lot of other EVs. Well, Rivian, to be fully honest, they're burning through a lot of cash, but production-wise, they came very, very close. I think that should count as a meet, in my head at least. But Polestar, definitely them ramping up as much as they are, that's a pretty big deal. So if they can hit 80, then them and Tesla, as it even says in their corporate presentation, they are truly the only global EV plays, and they're hitting it. They're hitting net loss was a little bit higher. R&D went down quite a lot compared to the previous year. That's a good sign. Yeah, even it shows behind all the numbers are representing that they're actually getting their stuff together. So liabilities. Okay. Cluster. Like I said, I think a lot of the numbers speak for itself, so fairly good progress there. But like I said, people are just going to be caring more so about what's going to happen. But for those of you like myself that got knew anything below $5 was a good deal, you're just laughing right now. So I bought back in. I kind of flipped it a little bit, Polestar. So I initially did have an average of $4.45. I didn't sell at the peak right here, or during right here. I ended up selling, I think it was around $6. So, but I ended up buying back in on the right here, 488. So, like, it's numbers speak for themselves. People are just playing too much in emotion, and Polestar is getting dragged down with a lot of the other crappy companies that can't really kind of meet their demand. And looks like it starts in 2 minutes. Saw 6 Polestar 2s at the parking lot at the mall today. Oh, nice. From what I've been told, I live in Canada, and a lot of people are saying that Polestar is a very desirable one here. And of course, based on price point, like, yeah, I get that. And I think one of my biggest problems with Polestar in the past was the lack of technology, but they have committed to correcting that, especially with the Polestar 3. So, like, their only negative in my eyes, at least, is now being corrected. So now that begs the question, why is this only a 10 billion market cap company when they're actually meeting their targets, completely blowing out, for instance, Rivian, Lucid, whereas those have a 16 billion. So I think for a while, Polestar has been seen as a very, very discounted price when it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be at these levels at all with the stats it gets. Especially reconfirming 80,000. A lot of already future guidance for 2023 has been kind of hit and miss, but okay, it's still not on yet, but should start any minute. And just as a reminder, I'm going to mute myself. I'll kind of stay in the chat. What I'll do is I'll keep this open so you guys can see what they say, if it will influence or if it does influence the price. But currently it's up roughly about 4% after hours, which I think is a little bit low. Sandro, I live in Winnipeg, where nobody wants to be. Yeah, Wicca, cup holders. That, yeah, cup holders. That is. Yeah, good old cup holders. To be fully honest, and like I always like to be non-biased, so I cover Lucid quite a lot, and Polestars look pretty good. Like I like them. Oh, okay, it's starting.
Good day, and thank you for standing by. Welcome to the Polestar fourth quarter and full year 2022 results conference call. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode. After the speaker's presentation, there will be the question and answer session. To ask a question during the session, you will need to press star 11 on your telephone keypad. You will then hear an automatic message advising your hand is raised. To withdraw your question, please press star 11 again. Please be advised that today's conference is being recorded. I would now like to hand the conference over to our first speaker today, Bojana Flint. Please go ahead.
Thank you, operator. Hello, everyone. My name is Bojana Flint from Polestar Investor Relations. I will cover a few housekeeping points before handing over to Thomas Ingenlath, our CEO, and 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧, our CFO. Their remarks will take about 15 minutes and will then open the line for analyst questions, followed by questions received from our shareholders. Before handing over the call to Thomas, I would like to remind participants that many of our comments today will be considered forward-looking statements under the U.S. federal securities law and are subject to numerous risks and uncertainties that could cause Polestar's actual results to differ materially from what has been communicated. Forward-looking statements made today are effective only as of today, and Polestar undertakes no obligation to update any of its forward-looking statements. For a discussion of some of the factors that could cause our actual results to differ, please review the risk factor section of our report on Form 20-F or other documents we file with the SEC. You may also find more information on forward-looking statements in our filings with the SEC or our investor update presentation and recent press releases, which can be found on our investor relations website. Further, we hereby advising you not to place undue reliance on the preliminary estimated unaudited operational financial results for the year and quarter ending December 31st, 2022 that we are announcing today. Our independent registered accounting firm has not completed its audit of our year-end results. The preliminary estimated unaudited information presented today could be subject to material adjustments, and we should not be considered substitutes to the annual report on Form 20-F that we will be filing for the year ending December 31st, 2022. In addition, management will make references to non-GAAP financial measures during the call. Our discussion of why we use non-GAAP financial measures and information regarding the reconciliation of our non-GAAP financial measures with our most directly comparable GAAP measures is available in our earnings press release as well as in the investor update presentation issued earlier today. With that, I'd like to turn the call over to Thomas. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Bojana, and thank you to everyone who has joined our results call. When I reflect on the outcome of 2022 and what lies ahead, I'm confident we have the right strategy of capturing the market opportunity with our established global presence and the rapid product rollout. With more than 5 years as CEO, I know that our focus on design, innovation, and sustainability is what resonates with the market and makes customers passionate about our brand. This underpins the role we play in the much-needed shift to sustainable mobility. Now, the recent achievements. I want to underline how delighted I am with everything we achieved in 2022. It was our biggest year yet, despite the fluid and challenging environment. There are many highlights of 2022 to mention. Most importantly, we delivered what we said we would. More than 50,000 vehicles globally, up 80% year on year. Today, there are around 100,000 Polestars on the roads in 27 markets. There are 158 retail locations and over 1,100 points where our customers can get service. Only one other pure EV player in mass market production has this kind of global footprint. Thanks to the huge team effort, over 21,000 vehicles were delivered in the fourth quarter. Our record quarter today to help us surpass the 50,000 volume target. This was an important milestone, which demonstrated the abilities and strengths, and I would like to thank everyone at Polestar that made this happen. We grew our revenues to $2.5 billion, up over 80%. Together with support from our major shareholders, we strengthened our liquidity so that we can remain laser-focused on business execution. A business execution that first and foremost prioritizes and safeguards our rapidly expanding premium product portfolio, despite prolonged macro and ongoing supply chain constraints. So, starting with design and our product development. We launched our first luxury SUV, Polestar 3, in October 2022 in Copenhagen, and we were extremely pleased with the reception that it received, including order intake today. Polestar 3 is a powerful, design-led electric performance SUV that appeals to the senses with a distinct shape and excellent driving dynamics. It is a car that has been designed as a Polestar from start to finish and built for the electric age. We are working closely with our manufacturing partners now to start the production in the middle of this year. Once the production in China commences, the team will move to Charleston, South Carolina, looking to start U.S. manufacturing of the Polestar 3 in mid-2024. Keep an eye out this spring. We will host some exciting Polestar 3 events in the US, meeting customers, investors, and media. In January, we launched a major update of Polestar 2, a new high-tech front end that reflects the design language premiered by Polestar 3, the Smart Zone. Polestar 2 also gets substantial sustainability and performance increases with a battery upgrade and new, more powerful, and at the same time more efficient motors. For the first time in a Polestar, rear-wheel drive is Polestar 2. In short, we showed our continued love for Polestar 2 by keeping it fresh and exciting, alongside launching new vehicles. We are doing both, as we believe this is very important in keeping customers connected with our brand and satisfaction high. Focus on customer satisfaction has been a critical factor that has ensured Polestar 2 is today amongst the top 10 best-selling BEVs in many markets, including the UK, Sweden, Norway, Canada, South Korea, and Australia. And as I promised, I'm happy to confirm Polestar 4 is in the starting blocks. Can't wait to show it to you, and we will very, very soon. Moving to innovation, another key pillar for Polestar. We recently reached an agreement with Google for our vehicles to benefit from their latest enhancements, such as the new HD map in Polestar 3 and the rollout of remote actions for Polestar 2. We are expanding our partnership with Luminar from Polestar 3 to include their LiDAR technology also in Polestar 5. The utilization of LiDAR technology continues to gain momentum as the global focus on next-generation safety and autonomy increases. Worth mentioning, Polestar 3 with LiDAR is available since February to order at polestar.com. Sustainability underpins everything we do. Our ambitious sustainability project, Polestar 0, continues to build momentum. In the last few weeks, we added a further 8 new partners, bringing the total of 24 overall, and we are making strong strides towards our goal of creating a truly climate-neutral car by 2030. We initiated the Pathway Report in response to the climate crisis and in collaboration with another EV maker. We believe collective actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the supply chain and increase renewable energy in the grids are needed in addition to the faster EV adoption. To sum it up, I'm extremely excited for 2023. This year, we will fundamentally build on all our achievements from 2022, and despite a still uncertain and fluid operating environment, plan to deliver 80,000 cars, 60% more than last year. Polestar, in the coming months, will meaningfully transform from a one-model company to having a line-up of 3 cars in our portfolio. Free from legacy constraints and backed up by the scalable asset-light model, we will capture more of the market growth opportunities while always keeping true to our core pillars of design, innovation, and sustainability. Now, I would like to ask Johan to comment on our financial results and give some guidance on 23 outlook.
Thank you, Thomas. Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. It's great to see so many of you on the call and on the webcast. Starting with operational highlights first. We have delivered 51,491 cars globally in 2022, of which 21,067 in the fourth quarter, our record quarter to date. Just to stop and reflect on that for a moment, delivering over 21,000 cars in the quarter is a fantastic achievement for a young company. As Thomas mentioned, it is an important milestone which demonstrates both our abilities and strengths. Our ability to ramp up production, our ability to meet the logistical challenges of handing over the keys to over 21,000 customers across the globe in one quarter, and the strength of our brand and product. Most importantly, it demonstrates that we have the capability to execute in a fluid and still challenging environment. We are now active in 27 markets on 4 continents and have 158 sales locations and over 1,100 service points. We grew these by 40 to 50%, complementing our digital-first direct-to-consumer approach with our expanding physical footprint. We also recognize that it is still a challenging macro environment. And as I shared on the last earnings call, we started to take actions already last year. I'm pleased to see that those initiatives have come through in the numbers, especially in our operating expenses. I am proud of what we have accomplished through the tremendous hard work and dedication of our entire organization. Moving to the financial highlights for full year 2022. Revenue increased 84%, from 1.3 billion to 2.5 billion, mainly driven by an increase in Polestar 2 vehicle sales, with continued commercial expansion across both existing and new markets. We mainly sold long-range dual-motor variants of the Polestar 2 in 2021, while in 2022, we introduced other variants to offer choice to our customers, some at lower price points, which had an impact on average revenue per vehicle. With regards to market mix, our sales in 2022 were proportionately higher outside of Europe, where revenue per car is typically lower. And in terms of foreign exchange, this was due to strengthened US dollar versus predominantly European currencies. Gross profit increased from 1 million to 119 million, leading to an improved gross margin of 4.9%. This was driven by higher Polestar 2 sales and lower fixed manufacturing costs, and in the latter part of the year, price increases. Partially offset by foreign exchange, which led to higher cost of sales, and product and market mix. Selling, general, and administrative expenses were 21% higher at 865 million, compared to 84% growth in revenues, as we start to accrue benefits of scale. Research and development expenses were down 27% to 171 million, due to the absence of Polestar 1 amortization, partially offset by higher spend on future vehicles and technologies. Operating loss, excluding the one-time share-based listing charge of 372 million, decreased 8% from 995 million to 914 million. Moving on to Q4 2022, I would like to point out 4 items. Revenues in the quarter were nearly 1 billion as we delivered 21,000 cars, a great achievement. Gross margin was 6.3%, better than expected as the full effect of the price increases introduced early in the year came through in the quarter, but input costs are still lagging and only had a meaningful impact in December. Thirdly, selling, general and administrative expenses were kept flat compared to the same period last year due to the active cost management that I mentioned earlier. And finally, together, these resulted in a reduced operating loss of 205 million, down 39% when compared to Q4 2021. Moving on to cash flow. Cash used for operating activities for the full year was 1.1 billion, mainly driven by operating loss, working capital increase in inventories and trade receivables as a result of higher production and sales, and interest expenses due to increased financial indebtedness. Cash used for investing activities was 0.7 billion, predominantly driven by intellectual property investments for Polestar 2, Polestar 3, and Polestar 4. CapEx in Q4 was lower than expected, but largely due to timing. Cash provided by financing activities was 2.1 billion, driven by the net listing proceeds of 1.4 billion and a net increase in short-term borrowings of 0.7 billion to support the continued growth of the company. So, at the end of 2022, cash and cash equivalents stood at approximately 1 billion. Before I hand over to the operator, let me wrap up with the outlook for 2023. Global volume is expected to be approximately 80,000 cars, an increase of 60% year-on-year, predominantly driven by Polestar 2 sales. We expect gross margin to be broadly in line with 2022, with volume and product mix supporting margin progression later in the year. And finally, we are on track in terms of liquidity, and as we previously communicated, we continue to explore potential equity and debt offerings to raise additional capital to fund.
Thank you. As a reminder, if you wish to ask a question, you can press star 11 on your telephone keypad and wait for your name to be announced. To withdraw your question, please press star 11 again. Please stand by, we will compile the Q&A roster. This will take a few moments. Now we're going to take our first question. And the first question comes to the line of Winnie Dong from Deutsche Bank. Your line is open. Please ask your question.
Hi. Thank you so much for taking my questions. Can you guys hear me okay? Hello? Okay, great. On your 2023 delivery targets, you exited 2021 with pretty strong sort of cadence in the Q4 quarter. Any reason why we might not think your 80K guidance is a conservative number? And should we be expecting a sequential step down in Q1 and improving throughout the year? That's my first question. Thank you. I have a follow-up.
Yeah, Thomas here, Winnie. Well, I think it's a well-known effect in the market that quarter one after quarter four is always that little dip that then picks up in spring again, a very natural behavior. The overall guidance on 80,000 as a target for 2023, I think it's it's just simply us being very realistic about what we feel is doable in a world which is, struggling with wars, still recovering from the effects from the pandemic. Yes, of course, we have a much better situation when it comes to supply chain and logistics again. And the 80,000 is an increase of plus 60%. So I think that's definitely something which we feel is a strong growth from where we ended in 2022 with 50,000. And then not to forget, the big bulk of the 80,000 is the Polestar 2, which will have the very nice, great upgrade in tech. The effect of us expanding our product portfolio very meaningful now with adding, to start with now the Polestar 3, but as well the Polestar 4 already in sight. That effect will of course be much stronger and really to full effect in 2024.
And maybe just to follow on with just a brief statement about the phasing for the years, as Thomas mentioned, just the natural seasonality of the business, the volumes tend to be lower at the beginning of the year, and we expect volumes to be weighted towards the second half, and this is on the back of the recently launched Polestar 2 model year 24, as well as then with some of the Polestar 3 volumes expected to come in later in the year.
Winnie, do you have further questions?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Thanks for that. That was helpful. Can you expand more on the gross margin trajectory for the year? You alluded to, a similar level versus 2022. Could you maybe provide sort of like a year-over-year comparison and a breakdown of factors that are driving that in terms of, perhaps, bits of impact from pricing, regional mix, and then product mix as well? Thanks so much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can provide a little bit more color on the gross margins for this year. So as we guided in the release, we expect gross margins to be broadly in line with 2022. With that being said, we do anticipate some pressure on margins during the first half of the year with the run rate impact of the raw material prices coming through, as well as some increased sales support in select markets. We then expect margins to improve later in the year as the volumes pick up and we start to see the impact of the model year 24 coming through, and as I mentioned, first deliveries of Polestar 3. It's also worth mentioning that we have not assumed any reductions in the material costs during the year, which of course would be margin accretive depending on timing.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Now we're going to take our next question. And the next question comes to the line of Tobias Bates from Redburn. Your line is open. Please ask your question.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for taking my question. I got a couple. I guess where I'd like to start is on raw materials. What are your expectations for the impact of raw material and other cost inflation on earnings in 2023? I guess what I'm looking for is, a figure in the hundreds of millions of dollars, if that's okay. And I've got a couple of follow-ups. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer, Tobias, in regards to providing guidance there. And what I can say is what I stated in the sense that for Q4, whilst we saw the full impact of the price increase introduced early in the year, there's still a lag and a longer lag than originally anticipated on the increased input costs. So we really only saw that come through in December. So with that in mind, then, as I mentioned, we do expect some margin pressure during the first half of the year because of then the full run rate impact of raw materials coming through, and then later in the year, the margin then to improve.
Okay, great. So just to make sure I understand, in the fourth quarter, basically the margin improved because your raw material price inflation didn't increase, or you didn't experience any inflation like you thought you would. But then you're going to start to realize some of these increases in the first half of the year, and then they get offset in the second half of the year. Is that right?
That's right. That's correct.
Okay, great. And then just my second question, if I have a look at your regional websites, it looks like the order book for the Polestar 2 in the US covers less than 1 month of sales versus 8 in Europe and roughly 3 in China. What sort of actions are you taking to increase brand awareness in North America and China, given how important it is for the success of the Polestar 3? I was also wondering if you were willing to share how your 2023 volume guide splits by major region.
Generally, the order book that we left 2023, 2022 into 2003 is a good order book, and we still are busy with working that down. In regards of the activities that we have for the markets, in US, we are very much actually started yesterday promoting that Polestar 2 does qualify for the incentives when leased. So that is a program that we very much promote now. And I think that will strengthen the Polestar 2 position in the market very much. And generally, the brand awareness in the US is something that will, along our build-up of the Polestar 3 introduction into the market, us going now in April with the car on tour, the car coming to the spaces in the middle of the year. That is all orchestrated to be a nice build-up of a buzz around the car and the brand in the US. So that's very opposite to the 2022, where we started with this big bang of being in a halftime show in the Super Bowl. This year, it's much more targeted to the build-up towards the middle of the year. And that maybe is very important to keep in mind when you judge now on Polestar in the US.
And maybe just to then address the regional mix to give some color there. If we look at full year 22, the US accounted for a little bit short of a quarter of the sales. And then, as you know, predominantly the sales are in Europe, probably 2/3, with the remaining then the rest of the world or Asia Pacific. And I would expect a similar mix for 2023, perhaps with a slightly higher portion of the sales in APAC.
Okay, great. This is super helpful. Thank you very much. I'll pass the line on to someone else.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to take our next question. And the next question comes to the line of Dan Levy from Barclays. Your line is open. Please ask your question.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon to you. Thank you for taking the question. I wanted to start by asking, I know you talked about growth earlier, but maybe you can talk about the underlying trends in OpEx and what we might be able to expect for 2023 on the OpEx side.
Dan,
I apologize. The line broke up. Would you mind repeating the question? We had a hard time hearing it.
Yeah, OpEx, looking for underlying trends in OpEx in 2023. Gross margin guide, what are you thinking on the OpEx front?
Okay, I heard the first part of your question. You're looking for guidance in regards to OpEx. So what I can say there is that we continue to apply a restrictive spend in light of the prolonged challenging macro environment. with that being said, we also need to consider our expanded footprint and the fact that we are now established in 27 global markets. So, and then coupled with that, we plan to dial up the marketing spend in preparation for the upcoming 2 car models, Polestar 3, and then ultimately Polestar 4. So all in all, I would expect the S&G spend to increase year on year. I would say by similar percentage increase as you saw for 2022.
Great, thank you. Second question is, I think earlier you made, in the Q&A, you made a comment about sales support. Maybe you could just explain what that means. And also, just the pricing trend as it relates to Polestar 2. One of your competitors, a large pure play EV co, made some headlines by cutting prices earlier in the year. So maybe you can talk about how the potential for price decreases actually factors into your thinking.
Yeah, maybe I can start with the first part. It's what I meant there is really as it relates to the fact again that we're now established in 8 additional markets, and so of course we need to get ourselves established there, just as we have in the other ones, in investing in the brand and our presence. That's what I was referring to there.
Yeah, Thomas here again regarding the pricing and the position. I think it's a very good moment in time now to where it becomes very obvious the different ideas where the companies are going to strategy, whilst the other pure EV player you were mentioning is obviously very much concentrating to go mass market in the future to compete with the likes of Volkswagen and Toyota. Polestar's ambition is of course to go fully into this premium luxury sports car segment. We have talked about that already. Yes, of course, Polestar 3 compares to Polestar 2 compares to a Model 3, but with cars coming, Polestar 3, 4, and 5, it's very clearly targeted towards a product portfolio, a competition that's much more in the comparison to an electrified Porsche. So for that reason, we are keen on developing desirable cars that offer great tech and design, and of course they have their price. Polestar 2 upgrade that we are introducing now into the market is a very good example for that. We upgraded the car, not just only with a nice new front end. It's really tech that we brought in there with range improvement, with stronger, powerful engines, and this value creation as well for the customer for them to have a stable, reliable value with this car. I think that is our premium strategy that we are determined to follow through.
Thank you. If I could just squeeze one more in, please. I see your press release makes note that you are exploring potential equity or debt offerings to raise additional capital. So if you could just remind us of the minimum cash balance required and what types of options you might have to gain additional liquidity. I know you just raised a facility with Volvo and Geely. What other sort of creative financing opportunities might there be beyond straight equity or debt? Thank you.
Sure. Let me just address kind of broadly what you were talking about, and then I can talk a little bit more specifically. Okay, as you mentioned, as we previously announced, and towards the end of last year, we obtained this 1.6 billion shareholder financing and liquidity support from our 2 major shareholders. So this has definitely helped strengthen our financial position, and then as you would have noticed as well, we had approximately $1 billion of cash on the balance sheet at year end. And we of course continue to explore other funding options. I think we've demonstrated that through the course of 2022 in the form of local working capital facilities. We also have a trade financing facility in place. Those are two examples. And we continue to explore avenues and funding sourcing such as those. In addition to that, we also recognize that we do need to bring in and raise additional capital, either in the form of debt, continued debt, either from the capital markets or equity, or a combination of both. And that is something that we continue to explore.
And the minimum cash balance?
Yeah, we don't necessarily guide on the minimum cash balance. I mean, we had $1 billion at the end of 2022. We don't necessarily need to hold that amount of cash on hand as we stand right now, but that of course helps our financial position going into 2023. And what we also mentioned before was, based upon this, the liquidity support from our shareholders alongside the cash on the balance sheet and other potential financing solutions, then we expect to be adequately funded through 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dear participants, as a reminder, if you wish to ask a question, please press star 11 on your telephone keypad. Dear speakers, there are no further questions. Oh, please accept my apologies. We just got another question over the phone lines. And the next question comes to the line of Tobias Bass from Redburn. Your line is open. Please ask your question. Excuse me, Tobias, your line is open. You're more welcome to ask the question.
Oh, sorry. Hi, I had myself on mute. Thanks for squeezing me in again. If I remember rightly, in the second quarter of 2023, $120 million worth of payables due to Volvo Cars. And I was just wondering, can you explain kind of, I guess, how you expect this to be covered? You know, is this going to be going to come from the liquidity support from TSD? And I guess broadly, what I'm actually interested in is kind of the working capital trend for 2023. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you for that question. So in regards to working capital, we expect working capital to grow with sales, but as you correctly point out, we still have scheduled payments of the overdue related party payables towards Volvo that you make reference to. And those we are planning to settle then during the year. And the settlement of those payables, around the $500 million that you mentioned, that is part of the cash forecasting for the year. So that's contemplated in the prior statement where we expect to be adequately funded through 2023.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you. Dear speakers, there are no further questions over the audio lines, and I would now like to hand the conference over to management team for any written questions.
Yeah, hi, Thomas here again. We have selected 6 of the top voted questions that reached us. And I will try now to answer them in the time that we have left here. So let's have a look at question number 1. It's being said that Polestar is not known, a known brand in the US. What are the efforts being taken to improve this? To start with, I would love to explain a bit the difference that we obviously have compared to some of our competitors, peers in the startup arena. Obviously, our strategy was from day one to go out and develop our footprint quite harmoniously in all the regions, major important regions for EV, instead of what a lot of competitors do, develop in your home country a strong presence, and then after those years of establishing that, going out and go and conquer more of the world. We can discuss, what is more benefit. Our clear dedication was to do it the Polestar way. And that is when I mentioned that the Polestar 2 is amongst the top 10 BEVs in many markets. That is a result of it, because yes, that's why we are in South Korea, that's why we are in the UK, in Sweden, in many countries, Australia, we are under the top 10 with our Polestar 2. You can compare that. I mean, to grow one plant very fast, yeah, you can do that, but it's a very isolated one. I mean now the botanical plant, sorry, not factories. But if you plant a lot of flowers and then they grow, of course, a big amount, but it grows a little slower. So if you in the US don't see our brand as much as you see competitors like Lucid, Rivian, yes, I understand that might be slightly irritating, but you will see our brand, therefore, in many other countries where you never ever have seen a Rivian or Lucid. Now, having said that, of course, we want to accelerate and progress in the US. And as mentioned a bit earlier, there's a full-fledged program over the course of the next 12 months, how we increase our brand awareness in the US, how we put, obviously, money behind it. There's for Q2 this year, over $20 million allocated to work in the US and build up brand awareness. And I mentioned before, it is not the big bang in the beginning with the Super Bowl. It is indeed more targeted towards going now with the Polestar 3 into the market and promote it. So indeed, there is a little bit more of a build up towards summer. So the Polestar 3 arriving, the facelift of the Polestar 2 being promoted, all of that will, of course, heavily increase the awareness for Polestar. Last but not least, of course, we expect as well a lot the fact that we are moving production of Polestar 3 into the Charleston plant in the US. It will, of course, make as well a big impact on how much our products and our brand are present in the US market. Finally, yes, today we have 30 spaces up and running in the US, and we will, of course, continuously expand another 10 over the course of the year. Washington, D.C., Miami on the agenda, some of them coming. So I think all in all, it will definitely be towards, over the course of this year, again, another big step that Polestar will make in the US. Question number 2, found as well a lot of people who asked in that direction. Can you share any details on Polestar's long-term plans for expanding its product line? We will fundamentally transform from being a one-model company to a company with a lineup of Polestar 2, Polestar 3, and then indeed Polestar 4 joining as well. 2024, the Polestar company will have these 3 cars fully in the lineup, Polestar 2, 3, and 4. And I presume everybody knows that we are already with prototypes up and running with Polestar 5, preparing already for the next launch then end of 24, so that the Polestar 5 will be then fully available in the world in 25. And as a cherry on top of that cake, the Polestar 6, the Roadster, a car that will then complete that first round of product portfolio in 2026. This is, to give you a perspective, kind of the bandwidth of where we see the brand Polestar in this first generation operating. We will, and that is again in probably in sharp contrast to other EV startups, we have of course very strong focus on not letting our product portfolio get old. We will then start looking into the second generation of the cars that we have put out there. Not necessarily exactly the same as a repetition, but really working on keeping this customer base that we have built there and grow together with them. Number 3, will Polestar utilize Volvo dealerships for displaying, selling, and servicing Polestar vehicles? Well, we utilize the Volvo dealership, of course, heavily when it comes to servicing. How could we ever have done that rollout of 1,100 service centers? This is, of course, working together and using Volvo Cars facilities and dealers. The Polestar spaces that we run and operate in most parts of the world are direct consumer places where Polestar is selling these cars, but they are operated and invested by Polestar space investors who indeed we recruited, we invited Volvo dealers to invest into this new form of Polestar space. They have this special contrast, but of course they bring the expertise and all the knowledge of how to work with customers in a good way, and we harvest a lot on that expertise and have a very good business model together with them. In the US, North America, it's a bit different. There we work together with selected Volvo dealers to then invest into a Polestar space where they sell the car. It is in the beginning been done very deliberately where the EV market was blossoming, and as we expand in the US and as of course electrification expands in the US, we will with more and more Volvo dealers do contracts to run Polestar spaces. So that definitely is on the agenda to continue that very successful model that we have established in the first 3 years. Do you think your new factory in the Carolina will help Polestar to ramp up production and increase market share within North America, especially since consumers may associate the brand with China? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Carolina should be a big factor in making sure people understand Polestar is a European brand, but with a global production footprint. Carolina is the first step. We will definitely have other steps following where we bring production into a more global spread. The capability of ramping up production absolutely relies on using facilities that are available in the group. We have this asset-light model where we, for example, the factory in Carolina, of course, we're not building that factory. We're bringing our product into a factory which is up and running and established, and that is the way how we will continue using this model. Next question is, does the company have plans to offer more of an entry-level model similar to Tesla Model 3? Polestar 2 defines very much the base and the entry level for the brand Polestar. And no, we don't have any intention to launch and develop a model below Polestar 2. And very clearly, we are not aiming to produce 10 or even 20 million cars per year. That's very clearly not the target of the brand Polestar. So for that reason, no, there is a very different ambition within our company. We will move our product portfolio up market and explore that end. The US tax credit of $7,500 was a major incentive to buy Polestar. That's now the next question, number 6. Does Polestar have plans to begin qualifying for the tax credit in the future? Does Polestar 3 the Polestar 3 is priced above the tax credit threshold, and the Polestar 2 is not currently manufactured in the US. Well, Polestar 2, it currently qualifies for the 7,500 federal tax credit in the US when leased, and we have already adjusted our commercial plans for this and went to market yesterday with a competitive lease offering. Polestar 3 at launch will not, we will deliver Polestar 3 in a very heavily equipped luxurious specification, hence the higher MSRP. And at this time, we are pleased with the order intake and do not see the need to lower the price, which would, of course, have an effect on our margin. And in the future, we could offer an entry variant of the vehicle, which would then meet the threshold, but that is then a discussion and something that we look upon in the future.
Thank you, Thomas. Hi, everyone. Bojana here. I would just like to apologize. I believe we had some technical issues during the opening remarks, and there was some interference on the sound. We will post the recording very soon on our website and make sure that those interferences are taken out. I can only apologize for that, and we will obviously improve going forward. With that, I will just pass to Thomas for his closing remarks, and thank you again for joining us.
Yes, well, from my side, a big thank you for the interest and you joining. You have heard 2022 was a great year, really, again. I mean, you can imagine we had actually a really, really massive end of the year party because to celebrate that year. And looking forward, 2023, we have a fundamentally upgraded Polestar 2. That year, we will start producing Polestar 3, and indeed, we will launch Polestar 4 in 2023. So the shift from being a one-car company to having a product portfolio of 3 models that address the core EV growth segments will help us to achieve the targets. Thanks a lot.
That does conclude our conference for today. Thank you for participating. You may now all disconnect. Have a nice day.
Well, to be fully fair, that with the exception of audio, which kind of made it seem a little bit more amateur, but I think generally, like, I liked it. It is fairly good. And there's some other EVs that I've covered in the past that I look at their earnings and they are unable to give you a credible answer. Whereas Thomas, he answered the questions on point without hesitation. And even if it was bad, saying, are you planning on offering another model? He just said no. Like I like that. I like the answers. Although it would have been good to see when do you expect profitability. Most likely, was it 2025 possibly, based on if they keep this up. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about it. Clearly one thing that they were and is a concern is about the US presence, but he did mention that it is and was because of a stronger US dollar. That was in 2022. So I don't know if you want to hope for a potential US recession that might lower the dollar. I don't know. That might help it, but regardless, I don't think they're really making any strives to change that up until Q3. Based on what they did say, Q1 might be a little bit more tight for profit margins, or for the margin pressure, what they said. So Q1 might not necessarily be as big of an explosion as, I think he used that term exactly, in Q1 2022. So just as a comparison, that might be something to be aware of. But it is the second half of 2023. That's where they're going to make some pretty big strides. And generally, good amount of cash. They did have this issuance as well that did come out right here. So there was 100 million, give or take, that they're increasing. So up to 2.2 billion shares. So they're at 2.1, I believe, right now. Let's just take a look. So they currently have, 2.1. So yeah, they're just increasing it roughly about 100 million. So not it sucks, but it's already factored into the price. And the fact that it's up 6.1% after hours is pretty good, or pre-market. So I think generally, like, there's a lot of good reasons to be very much happy about this earnings. Yeah, Tobias, to be honest, some people maybe might not think of it as anything, but to have a CEO that just gives it to you straight up, that's something that I have never gotten, for instance, by listening to any Lucid live streams. Like, having a CEO, although on a side note, maybe that might be why it's a little bit lower, because based on the numbers and where everything and their trajectory for 2023, Polestar should not be at this price. Like, there's a lot of massive suppression being occurred with Polestar. And funny enough, though, normally it's associated to shorts, but shorts aren't even really in Polestar. So it is very much just people not seeing it negatively. I think, like I mentioned at the beginning, the mentality that Polestar was just a producing vehicle company and not necessarily had the best technology initially. And Thomas did touch on the two different expansion models. I don't think he called out Tesla exactly, but whereas an automaker would build up a very strong demand in their home country and then expand, whereas Polestar is kind of doing the opposite. They're just expanding. Of course, there are some negatives around that. So in my head, at least based on that model, it might be a little bit more costly, but once they do eventually ramp up and gain a little bit more demand, this is where you can actually take over the world very, very fast. So I'm pretty happy with the earnings, to be honest. Whether I personally would add right now because of the market conditions, I personally would wait. But at least, as I've been saying, like, if you can get in and you have a long-term mentality, like, hell, Polestar has shown time and time again that there is demand for it. Their vehicles look nice. They're ramping up the actual technology front as well. So Polestar is going to be a very big force to be reckoned with. Whether you get in now, later, I don't know when, but I'm pretty happy with it. Let me know your guys' thoughts on that in the chat. Tobias. Exactly, yeah. I feel that you are right. The price, I think, in this is factoring in it's being, 27 different regions. So clearly that's going to have a toll on the price as well, and people might possibly see that as a negative. But again, I'm pretty happy with it. Let me know you guys' thoughts. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Stay tuned for more Polestar content. I'll start adding it to the mix a little bit more, and hopefully people will gain a little bit more like watching those ones. Because honestly, yeah, I've never really understood why more people don't like Polestar. It's the only EV, one of the only EVs that's actually hitting the mark. But once again, you guys have a good rest of the day. Stay tuned and stay cool, guys. Thanks.